All right. We are allegedly live. How's it going, Mike?
It's going well. It feels just like before we were live.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Have you I actually was thinking since I was gone for a bit longer than you were. Have you already recovered from the travel, or are you still getting back in the swing of things?
I got a cold. My kid goes to public school, and it's like the perfect incubator for every thing that befalls mankind. So I got a cold like Wednesday of last week, and then got on a plane Thursday and had like that horrible sinus pressure that you have when you're like stuffed up on the plane, and then spent the rest of the weekend dealing with that. But then I got this cough
Oh
on
no.
Monday when I got back, and so I've just been dealing with the cough all week. So no, I'm not. I've not been able to catch my tail, as it were, after coming back from the conference. But like you did double duty. So Monday, so we were at SuperCon, Hackaday Super Conference in Pasadena, the 2nd through the 6th. Monday was the 6th. Then you got on a plane and went to Santa Clara and went to the Risk 5 Summit.
Yeah, that's right. And I definitely have not recovered either. Although I made some foolish traveled. Well, they were, I think they were correct decisions, but I paid a hefty price for them. Maybe would be a good way to describe them. So I was so eager to get back for our hackathon we had internally here at Goliath on Thursday that I took the red eye after Risk 5 Summit on Wednesday night, or I guess it was really Thursday morning. Got back here, was able to do some hacking on the plane, so I wasn't too far behind. But yeah, and then I kind of stayed up late last night, which I think was a factor of my having adjusted to West Coast a little bit by that time.
Yeah.
But also, I mean, that's mostly just on me. So I'm still bouncing back. I'm hoping the weekend is going to be my catching back up time, hopefully.
You weren't able to get a direct red eye, were you? There must have been a connection in there.
No, I went through Minneapolis, which I fly through Minneapolis a
Ooh.
lot, and it's not very direct, but the airport is great though. I love the Minneapolis airport. Oh, I mean,
Right, but then it's like a 5 a.m. Like you
yeah.
probably got on the plane at midnight, and then the
hmm
plane was probably a 5-hour flight, or like 4.5 to
I think it
Minneapolis.
was about 3.5 to Minneapolis.
Three.
Because
Okay, so it felt
I
like
was up in
3:30
SFO.
a.m. when you made your connection there.
Yeah. And
Oof,
I
yeah,
got all
that's
messed
rough.
up on the time change, and I actually had a meeting 30 minutes after I landed in Durham, so it was a whole debacle. But speaking of which, we can give a plug next week. We're doing a webinar. This was what the meeting was for. We're doing a webinar with Memfault and NXP. It's going to be a lot of fun. We did this like demo of what we're going to show there. More details to come, but we
Yeah.
did this demo at I don't know if I'd call it a conference. It was NXP Tech Days. They do these like all over the country in these different cities, and we did this demo up at their Boston Tech Days, or I think that's a bit of a misnomer. It was definitely not in Boston. I had some false marketing there. I was in outside of Boston, I would say, well outside of Boston, one might say. But so we did the demo there. It was so much fun. Great folks from Memfault and NXP, and we're gonna do it again next week on video for the internet. So come join us.
Yeah. Can you explain a little of the hack, or is that giving it away?
Of the NXP
Mem-
and Memfault thing.
yeah, the Memphal demo. Yeah.
Yeah. So we are well, I'll lay some pre-context. Goliath, right, allows you to manage your devices and send your data somewhere, right? What we're really optimizing for is what you might call the last mile, or maybe in our case, the first mile. I don't know if that's an industry term, but I kind of like it. But it's basically like, hey, you're in this super constrained environment where your devices are. So maybe you have cellular devices that are out in the field, or maybe you have one of the awesome reference designs that Mike and Chris have worked on, right? You're doing something at the edge, if you will. And that's a constrained environment. You don't have as much compute. You may be really sensitive to power constraints and that sort of thing, or you might have network issues and that sort of thing. So you want to basically get the data off there as fast as possible and then get it somewhere else to do the processing where you're less constrained. So Goliath, of course, allows you to get that data off of your devices, but then also get it somewhere else, right? And that other place can be kind of anywhere. We have a lot of robust integrations for doing that. Memfault is amazing at doing crash diagnostics and metrics and basically understanding a device, remotely understanding a device that's not behaving properly. And so what we want to do is allow users of Memfault to be able to really easily get that metric and crash dump analysis off of their devices and process it. And our users, right, to be able to use the awesome tooling that Memfault has. So we basically brought the SDKs together on the device. They're both really low overhead, which is great. And you're able to get that data remotely. Memfault doesn't offer the same sort of data ingestion that we do. So we're basically just getting that data from the device to Memfault, and in some cases the other way too.
Yeah, Sam has a lot of good things to say about Memfault. We were troubleshooting some bugs in one of the boards that we had with upgrading to Zephyr 3.5. That was a funny one because by the time we figured out what was causing the problem, it was already fixed in the Zephyr tree. So that's the way to do it,
Yeah.
the least work possible.
Power
But
of open source.
he like just in a passing, he's like, well, you could always get the core dump and then upload it to Memfault and use their tools to figure out what it says. And I thought, oh, that's a good endorsement right there.
Yeah, they are awesome. We've kind of like moved towards this terminology for a best tool for the job, which we're kind of stealing from, like Unix essentially. But I love that Memfault has this focus on this extremely important domain, right, of understanding why the device is not operating properly, and one that's like universal, right? Like everyone has this problem and they are so good at it. And I love being at Golioth where we can say like, hey, we want to enable you to use the best tool for the job in this case and in all other ones, right? There's lots of like data processing tooling. I think, Mike, we'll have I think they're going to do a live stream on this next week, but I know you and Dylan have been working on some AI applications recently, and there's some services that are great for that. So yeah, I'm super pumped about this as kind of like a key example of where Golioth is headed. I did want to ask you though, so like going back to SuperCon, right? We've gone down this rabbit hole. So this was for the audience. This was my first SuperCon. This was not Mike's first SuperCon. Mike is the OG SuperCon man, and so I was just trailing a celebrity this whole time. And it was truly one of the best experiences I've ever had. And I'm not even going to say like. I'm not even going to say like best conference experiences I've ever had, because that feels like a very, very low bar for which this cleared it by quite a bit. But just like trips I've ever had, I guess. I just thought it was truly wonderful. The atmosphere was incredible. Like the thing that struck me, I think, was the diversity of backgrounds, but also the really strong common interests. Like I don't think I've ever been in a place where there were so many people coming from different geographical places, different educational backgrounds, different current day job things, but also like this passion for the same general type of thing. It was just truly an incredible experience. But you've been doing this for a long time. You're responsible for a lot of growing that experience and building it. I was curious. One, I have two questions, I guess, that I came up with. One was, what was your just favorite moment from the conference this year? And two, more specifically, what was your favorite talk that someone gave? I think I know the answer to two, but I think all others need to know it too. So anyway.
Yeah. So, first off, just to go back, like, SuperCon happened because of a lot of people and a lot of people's ideas. It was no like one person put it together, and then it became very popular because of the people that went to SuperCon and the atmosphere they set up. So I really think it's like this like pulse of the hardware community type of vibe, and I always think of it as like it's kind of the end of the conference season. Like there's a lot of conferences that happen before the beginning of November. This is kind of like the last one, and it's not really to go and like show your company like booth demos, or it's for you to go and just like sit next to someone and talk to them about what they're doing and like hack on a badge and show it off and go and learn some new stuff at talks and catch up with people. So If you can get a ticket, it sells out every year. If you can get a ticket, you should definitely go. It's usually like the first weekend, maybe the second weekend in November every year, and they don't announce it until like 2 months before or something. So you really have to be watching. So actually, last year I didn't go to any talks. Last year I just talked to people and hacked on the badge, and that was like that 4-bit computer where you could type in a 12-bit like machine command into it and store it in registers. That was really cool. Badge this year was really cool, and we did a ton of hacking, but I did go and talk to people. I think my favorite talk of the year, you would expect me to say Sprite TM's talk on the Vectrex because he is like my favorite hacker in the entire world. But it was the talk on bringing up the Apollo guidance computer, the AGC. And you were at that talk too, right?
I was, yes. I was actually, I'm going to grab the link here and put it because folks just have to go watch this talk. It was truly incredible.
Yeah. So I'm sorry, I don't know the person that gave the talk. This is the first time he's been there. I do know Ken Sharif, who runs Righto.com and is always doing the uncapping and stuff. And he was involved in this project. It's through the Computer History Museum in Sunnyvale. And they got their hands on an original Apollo guidance computer that flew in one of the terrestrial testing LEMs. I think, was it a LEM? I don't know. And this computer does everything. So like it does the guidance, it does like everything that's going on. And it hadn't been fired up in like 40 years. And so there was a ton of like testing to make sure that the thing wouldn't just burn itself out when you turned it on. It's immaculate pieces of hardware. They pull out like these blades from this like machined aluminum case that it's in. And they end up finding that almost everything works. The only thing that's not working, I think, was like there was some core memory that had faults. So like the RAM wasn't working. And then they had some problems with the rope memory, which is like the ROM. Did I get this right?
I think so. This was my favorite part. The picture of the individuals who were like stringing the rope memory. Did you see it? Yeah, when they brought that up, that was pretty incredible.
Can you go into detail? I don't remember the reference.
I can't. I don't have enough information. I can see if I can find it in the video. The person who gave the talk is Mark. I don't know how to pronounce their last name. Mark Verdiel, maybe Verdiel. But they have also this site, Curious Mark, and a YouTube channel, and it's all incredible.
This is the other thing about this conference is like, it's really hard to put your online personas together with your in real life personas. So obviously Curious Mark I've followed on social media for years, but like never met the person. The thing that I remember vaguely about rope memory is they actually used textile workers to make it because it's like weaving fabric. Like it's very intricate, very tiny, like enamel wires in these cores. And so I think I remember the Apollo program like enlisted the expertise from the textile industry to make that happen.
Yeah, I'm trying to find the actual picture that was in the talk. Maybe actually, well, you can keep explaining. I'm going to see if I can. Oops. I'm going to see.
I'm actually go on a tangent right now because
okay, do it.
You and I was going to order this without telling you when we got back. I want to get the Core 64 kit. So there was a workshop where they were doing a 16-bit version of, did I just put this in the chat like that, of the Core 64, which is a like microcontroller attached core memory. And what it does is it has a ferrite core and then it has wires going through it. And if you energize the grid of wires in the right way, you can like charge that ferrite core to be a 1 or a 0. Is that right? And then I think reading it is destructive. So when you read the memory back, you have to set the bit again. But I just want to play with it. Yeah, I think you're muted, Dan.
Yeah, there we go. I would also love to do that. I've been searching through this, been trying to find the clip. Let me see if I can bring it up here. Of the trick here is to bring this up without making the audio go crazy. But let me see if I can share this. I really want to find this picture that Mark showed off. So this is all of the talks are available. They were actually available, and so you could watch them live, which was super cool. But let me see. So there's a ton of interesting pictures in here, but the one of
I
them.
muted the audio for your share, so you should be good to let it play. And do
Okay,
whatever.
cool. I'm gonna mute it here so I also don't hear it. But somewhere in here there's this picture of the textile workers stringing this up. But I mean, you can just see the incredible that they decapped a bunch of chips, and yeah, we're doing stuff with oscilloscopes. Let's see if maybe I can find the somewhere in here. Let's see. No. I mean, one of my takeaways here was that they just seem like they have so much fun at this place. Oh yeah, they made the FPGA version. Let's see.
Yeah, and it seemed like this person on screen right here, I think his name was Michael. He had a real drive to get this project going. And so every time there was something that they didn't have, like a piece of equipment they didn't have or one that wasn't functioning, he would basically build an emulator in an FPGA to stand in for that piece of equipment.
Yeah, that was incredible. The other part that I'm just remembering scrolling back through here is how they showed the computer to the person who created it, right?
Yeah, so Don Eccles, I think was the creator and the person who wrote the code, both of them. So
Oh,
like
right.
what was the creator's name? I forget what it was.
Let me see. I'm gonna just Google this rope memory, and we can see if since I can't find it here. Okay, this looks actually. Oh wait. Okay, here's one from Ken Sheriff, or is it Sheriff or Sharif? Do you know?
I think it's Sharif. I don't think it's Sheriff, but
Okay.
I could be wrong as well.
Well, I pulled this. Let me stop sharing that one and pull up this other tab, and we can see someone. Let's see. Someone here weaving the rope memory. So they literally were doing this by hand. They let's see if I can. Oh no, I don't have it here. But yeah, it was an amazing talk overall. I would encourage folks to give it a watch, and then also here we go. This post by Ken is excellent as well. I mean, look at this. This is wild.
Yeah, that's your ROM.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh yeah, and he's talking about the AGC here. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like it's bonkers. I mean, the other thing in the talk, they were going through like the manufacturing processes originally for this AGC, and it was the first computer that used an integrated circuit on it, and it ended up driving the entire industry because they needed so many of these integrated circuits. And then because they were building the industry as they were building this thing, they only used two types of gates so that there would only be like two types of chips in the entire computer, and there would be hundreds of them in there in order to get the like minimum order quantity to something, in the realm of sane.
Right. Yeah.
Now, I will say, have you been to the Computer History Museum in Sunnyvale or Mountain View?
Haven't.
Sorry, in Mountain View. It is the only museum I've gone to where I felt like I had a personal experience or like personal connection to the exhibits there, because there's like so many pieces of hardware that you've heard about or have been around in your life, or like led to a thing that like was transformative, and to like see them and see their backstories, I like really got sucked into it. So I recommend anyone that gets the chance try and make that trip down there. You got to take like Caltrain from San Francisco, but it's worth it.
Yeah, I had a similar experience. I went to the National Museum of Computing in Bletchley Park, um,
Oh,
and that
cool.
was I last year I was speaking at a conference in London, and this was a very nice conference. They paid for me to go, which was a first for me because I'm not a I don't know if I'm a tier A speaker, so I don't that isn't normally how it works out. But they paid for my flight and hotel and everything. And my mom actually loves London and she doesn't travel very much. And so I just asked her if she wanted to go. I was like, if you can get your flight, like, you can stay in the hotel and whatever. So we went together and I was at the conference the whole time. But then we went to the National Museum of Computing together. And I was just like enraptured in this experience. And I was there for like probably 10 hours just like going through everything. I mean, it's also like a pretty big place, because it's like actually at Bletchley Park and they have all the buildings that people lived and worked in and that sort of thing. But yeah, it was incredible. They've restored a ton of machines there. You can go on YouTube and watch a bunch of it, but I think it's like similar, but maybe even a larger scale than the Computer History Museum. So yeah, totally can identify with that. So what was your
So
favorite
another
moment though?
my favorite moment. I don't know, how do you boil things down to moments. I don't know what my favorite moment. I like seeing the badge hacking ceremony. So like everyone gets like 2 minutes to go up on stage and show what they did. And that's pretty cool because even though there's only like 500 people there, you don't get a chance to like see what everyone's working on as they're working on it. So that's kind of like your last chance to get an overview of the whole con.
Yeah. Yeah, I liked that a lot as well. I mean, partially because like we got to show off what we were working on, which blog post incoming. But also one of the parts I loved is when like people's demos didn't work or whatever, and it's like it's just fine, like we like the point was hacking during the week, and like getting to the end and saying like it all blew up and didn't work is like equally great to like to it did work and here's this really cool thing, which some of them were extremely cool. But
Yeah,
some
there
folks,
was the guy who got asteroids working on the badge and then it wouldn't work for the ceremony.
yeah, yeah, that was quite a cool demo too. And I don't think he ever figured out what the issue was. Someone was suspecting that it was the light that was on that was like focused on the like display thing where we held into the camera. Someone was expecting that it was like hot and that was impacting it, but I don't know.
I
It
was
was
worried
crazy.
that the AA batteries on the badge were gonna give out because I'd had the badge on like all weekend. So kudos to the badge crew because
Yeah.
that power supply held up. However, they had to manually rework 528 boards because when they made the design, there was a transistor to switch between the charge circuit and the batteries, or not the charge circuit, the USB power and the batteries, and they flipped the gate and the source
Oh
pins
no.
on that. And then Al Williams, one of the editors at Hackaday, who was working on the operating system, had it on his desk. And he came down the next morning, and one of the batteries was just a smoldering pile, and it like scorched his bench and stuff. Like it didn't burn his house down, which is good, because it tried to back charge the battery
Oh wow.
because of the way that transistor was set. So they ended up having to hot air rework and lift off the little surface mount transistor for all of those and put a um, just a diode in the correct orientation in there.
Wow. Yeah, I'm glad that didn't burn down his house. Jeez. Yeah.
Same with that. I don't think you were there. It was right at the end. We had parted ways, but I ran into Giovanni, who works at the design lab, and they did the pick and place and assembly of these.
Mm.
And he said that the little knobs, the little button that's on these, like it's this right here is like a 3D printed button that has the Hackaday logo on it. You can't really see it, but it just goes on like one of those joystick buttons. Um, they were on such a tight timeline, they had to order that without any sample runs. So he
Oh
ordered,
wow.
I don't know, 800 of them or something. And he's like, I measured it as closely as I could, and luckily the tolerances worked out.
Wow. Yeah. That I was impressed. That was a like a pretty nice little joystick thing, although it did come off of both of our badges. So but it worked for most of the weekend. The other thing I wanted to regarding your Hackaday experience or your SuperCon experience was your setup. because you were breaking out and I have a picture here. You were breaking out your new keyboard that you assembled. How was your experience? Right, obviously space is at a premium
Hmm.
at SuperCon, especially after Friday. It was a little more roomy, but then once we had the hacking alley, um,
Yeah.
it was tight, right? But you had one of the best setups I'd seen, especially with your stand here. How did it go with the new keyboard?
Yeah, it went really well. So I asked Sam, our firmware lead, before I left because I know he works with a laptop stand. He said, "Get this. I think it's called neck stand or something like that. Carbon fiber when it folds up really small." But I wanted the problem that I've had is I had like wrist pains and arm pains earlier this year and needed to go to a different keyboard setup. And I'm using the uh, Kinesis Giant Mega. I think you use this too, right, Dan?
I do. I've got it
Like,
right here.
yeah. So like if your arms hurt, this will solve a lot of it. But then I went on a family trip and I was working out of like a co-working space and I just typed on the keyboard on the laptop for like a day and a half and I was just in misery. And we were, since it was a road trip, I brought that giant keyboard with me and pulled that out and like it immediately fixed the problem, but it's like embarrassingly large and loud in a co-working space. So I thought I'm going to build a travel keyboard. And so I ended up building this Korn split keyboard, which actually runs Zephyr. So it's the ZMK. So this is just the right half of the keyboard right here. And I can also do left half of the keyboard over like that. And it lets me have my arms far enough apart and in an orientation. And it also doesn't have a lot of keys, so I'm not reaching very far. And it's been great, but you can't put it on top of the laptop keyboard. So what I ended up with is if I get that stand up, it puts just enough space in front of the laptop that I can then set the keyboard down in front of it. And I typed a ton and didn't have any problems.
Awesome. Yeah, you inspired me because I actually I also went to the Kinesis due to wrist and finger pain. Um and so uh I now truly hate traveling with my laptop. I didn't have any pain this time, but I was just so slow on my keyboard because going from the it's ortholinear, right, where you have the vertical orientation versus the offsets. I've gotten so used to the vertical and not having to move my fingers side to side as much that it really slowed me down. By the end of the week, I had started to get the hang of it again, and then of course today I went back to my Kinesis. But so I'm gonna have to get something going. I will say that I've seen. I don't know if folks have done it with the Corn specifically, but they also have like a little stand that's like a desk clamp, and so you can like mount it. You know, which is not how the Kinesis works, right? Because in the Kinesis we have these wells, but having it kind of at the angle, I think, would be helpful for
Yeah.
me as well. So I've been looking into some of those as well.
Yeah, they call them tenting kits. So I actually got this kit with the little eyelets. Sorry. The little eyelets here. So you basically put like a threaded rod with a foot in it. And then
Mm.
depending on where that threaded rod is, you can raise it up, which your hands want to be this. They don't really want to be flat like this. They feel a little bit better like this. The other thing that I did is I got a mouse. So this is the orientation of my mouse. Like there's the bottom so that your hand goes like this instead of going like this. And that fixed that final part of my right wrist pain. I was wondering why like my right arm hurt a lot more than my left arm. And it's because of my mouse.
Yeah,
Shocker though.
the mouse did it for me too. Although I went for the trackball. This is actually one of my favorite things here, the Kensington. So it's a little different, right? The trackball isn't even like up by your thumb like usual. I did have a thumb trackball before, but this one it's in the middle, which is weird. You don't use your well, I guess you can use however you want, but you don't use your thumb. You use like your middle fingers for it. But you have these 4 buttons that can be programmed to anything. So I've got some shortcuts set up with them basically, and then you scroll with the wheel. This wheel around it
Oh,
rotates.
cool.
Yeah, so I can move around pretty quickly with having a finger here and then one on the resting on the wheel, and I can turn the wheel while moving the mouse. So that's been my ever since I've gotten this. My wrists and fingers and stuff have been pretty good to go.
Yeah, the one requirement for me on mice is I have to have a forward and back button on my thumb. And luckily this This is an Anchor. It's got that. The only thing I like about this Anchor one is the batteries died within like 2 months.
Yeah.
Whereas I had a Logitech before, and it was like 2 or 3 years between battery changes for the
Oh.
Logitech. So I was looking at it when I changed the batteries. I'm like, I wonder if I can take the internals out of the Logitech and put it into this ergonomic body. So
Yeah.
I don't know. We'll see.
When you say a forward and back, is it like a rocker button?
No, it's
Like,
just like two distinct buttons right
oh, okay,
here.
cool. Uh-huh.
Yeah, and so for the browser, there's a forward and back button, which
Yeah.
is, I don't know, super nice. That when you mentioned being slower at the keyboard, the number one thing that I'm slower with on this when I don't have this keyboard is I've made my own layers for like changing browser tabs, scrolling up and down, changing tmux tabs, and changing Vim buffers. So like though not having those commands does make me a lot slower. That and
Mm.
like when the leaders change, so like I have a I have a thumb to make my terminal up here in front of whatever's on my main screen. It's like not having that and then having to change the leader for tmux. Those the things all make me a grumpy Gus.
Yeah, yeah. I don't have the layers going, but I will say that uh I found myself not remembering shortcuts. I thought I was like, sleep deprived or something. I couldn't remember how to like do basic things, and it's because I hadn't ever
Yep.
registered like what keys I was hitting. I just had the muscle memory. So the one that kept getting me was um I do yank to keyboard or yank to clipboard all the time. And so it's like quotes. So yeah, quotes plus, and so to get both those, I'm hitting shift and then yank with Y. But the plus is on opposite. It's on the top left corner in the Kinesis and the top right corner of my laptop keyboard. And so I would just hit the quotes and then just like freeze. And I don't know what comes next.
Yes.
Yeah, I had to to readjust. I'm sure now I've probably missed it a few times today when I've tried to hit that because I was reverting.
I did the same thing the first day I got the Kinesis keyboard. I couldn't remember that Control Shift is my leader for tmux because I just
Mm,
never think Control Shift. You just like do it with your hands. So I had to like pull the other keyboard out again and like put my hands on it and type.
yeah.
This reminds me. So our end of the year holiday hours is coming up, and we always do like work the hours that you want, work on special projects and stuff. I want to have a Vim meetup in the company then, and just like you, me, and Tim, and whoever else wants to join, and go over our Vim setups because like you were the one who told me to start using Telescope,
Mm.
and so I went out and reset up everything with Lua from scratch. But like my telescope's only like 90% working, and so like just having a sesh where we go through and talk about the things that are great and the things that annoy us might kind of polish that setup up for me.
Yeah, for sure. Since what was it, like 2 weeks ago, that I already had the plugin. I guess it's from GetGutter, right? That
Yeah, yeah,
but I didn't know the HP and HU shortcuts or
yeah.
leader HP and leader HU, and those have been life changing. I will say that one of the things I liked, which it's now been multiple years since I've opened VS Code, which is a badge of honor that I wear proudly. The it whatever, I don't know if it does it by default or if I had a plugin that did this. But it would, beside like each line, so not just changes, right? Just throughout the whole thing, there was like inline hints, and I think this would actually get kind of messy. There's probably a way to do it where it'd look okay in Vim, but probably not with my current theme, which it just had like the commit. It was like looking at the diff view or the blame view. It showed the get blame for the whole file. Every file opened, I just had to get blame. So I could see like the beginning of every commit message for every like group of lines in the file. And I really liked that because I could like hover and expand it and just like really quickly get to the history. I'm sure there's a way to do that in Vim, but I don't have it set up right now. So that would be one that I'd like to figure out.
Yeah, I just started using LSP. That's another reason that I set it up is your LSP looked really cool. And it's great. But when I have a build error, like the error goes to the side of the screen and then it's cut off the rest of the way.
Yeah, it
And
doesn't
like
wrap well.
there must be a way to like open a balloon that has the whole message in it, and you just stuff like that. So
Yeah.
between that and my keyboard, because I did the keyboard firmware myself as well, like I made some corded things. So like if you do E and R together at the same time, you get a plus sign. D and F right below it is minus, and C and V is equals. So you do like
Ooh.
really fast
Yeah.
stuff. But the problem is I have a 50 millisecond timeout by default in Zephyr on, or ZMK on those keys. And you type ER on the end of words all the time. And so I keep finding words that end in ER. I have a strong probability of getting a plus instead of an ER. And so I need to like tweak that timeout.
Yeah. That might be too optimized for me. I don't know if I can if I can get my brain to handle that. But I like it. I haven't ventured into the layers much because I don't. I mean, when I'm using the kinesis, I just don't need them, I guess. But
Well, we're going to
every
get
once,
you a keyboard kit with far fewer
well,
keys, and then
I
you'll
don't want
have.
a kit. I want to make my own kit. So we'll
Oh,
see.
you want to do the circuit board yourself?
Yeah, exactly.
Wow, that's ambitious. That's a
Yeah.
complex circuit board.
Well, I don't know. I watched some tutorials. And I mean, like, I guess it depends on what you're comparing it to, right? Like, I think I'm gonna start with doing like one of the tutorials I watched was a 3x3 macro pad, and I think I might start with that. And just like make all my mistakes on it, kind of, um, and see how that goes. But and then maybe graduate from there because I'm not sure what form factor to even go with
Yeah.
from like that. That's actually the thing that I'm more worried about rather than like the traces and things like that.
Yeah, it's the mechanical part that I think makes it complicated. I mean, certainly like the circuit board's pretty big, and each key only has like two traces going to it, so there's not that much.
Right.
Mine does have LEDs, so you need a voltage bus, a ground bus, and then data between each LED on the board.
Mm,
But I'm mostly thinking like the stack ups need to all work, right? So like you have to get the keys in the right place that they're actually gonna match your fingers, and then you have to match that to like the key. I don't know what they call this, like the key retaining ring that's cut out of acrylic, or it could be out of FR4 as well. And then also these keyboards, it's the same circuit board, whether it's flipped or not flipped. So they've done like some
oh,
very clever stuff on like where the headers for the microcontroller are based on the side, and like it's pretty neat.
yeah. No,
Neat
that does sound cool.
niche.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. No, I've got to start smaller, and then build up to there. I still haven't picked the microcontroller though. Although after using the Pico, I'm pretty intrigued by using that, for the macro pad or a larger keyboard in the future. Yeah, it was very fun to work with, I thought.
So SparkFun has a Arduino Nano footprint compatible RP2040 board. So you could just design like kind of the industry standard in keyboard kits is that Arduino Nano, because that's what they were controlling with when they were ATmega 328 8-bit microcontrollers.
Hmm.
So my keyboard is designed for that, but then I got an NRF 52840 board that has the same pinout called the Nice Nano. But you could do the same thing with an RP2040 and then change it up if you don't like it.
Gotcha. Okay. I have never actually. Okay, in college, we had a class where we used Arduino, but I feel like this is a potentially very naive question, so I'll ask it in front of the entire internet. But what does Arduino mean? To me, it means like a lot of different things, like the common form factor, right? That a lot of, like you were saying there, other boards, emulate to be compatible with things. It means the Arduino C, right, is kind of like a variation, its own programming language. We use like an Arduino IDE. It probably has a special name for it. But what when we say Arduino, what do we mean? Or could it mean
Yeah,
any
I think you
multiple
cover.
things?
Yeah, I think it just means a bunch of different stuff. So like, there's the
Okay.
Arduino IDE, which is used by a ton of stuff. So like, for instance, if I'm bringing up a new sensor, I will often look and see if the ESP32 port of Arduino has a driver for that sensor,
Okay.
and just pull up the Arduino IDE and load up a like hello world for that sensor and see what data coming in through the ESP32 looks like. Just because it's like a very low resistance path, like I have
Okay.
ESP32s on hand. You don't have to write anything. Like you just click onto the menus and be like, give me the example sketch for this sensor, and then you flash it and run it, and you feel good about yourself.
Yeah. So, but you're still writing like C, right? Or no, you don't have to write any C.
Well, in that case, like the driver will come with an example
Okay.
sketch on it, which is in C++ usually, or some
Okay.
C or C++. And you just go to like file example, the sensor, and then it'll have like 3 different programs or whatever. And you just load them up and click compile and upload, and it uploads it to the ESP32. And then that's usually
Okay.
where my experience with the Arduino ends. Then I'm like, okay, this sensor works, and I know what the pinout is. It's like my point of sanity. For instance, we're working with something called the ArduCam, which again is like on those coattails of Arduino. It's just like an SPI camera that you can get that's in like a nice little case, and you can order it from DigiKey and all this stuff. So it's like good to do demos with because it's available. And then they have libraries for it. But the first time I was like, oh, I want to make sure that this actually works, and I've got it hooked up right. And like they've got an Arduino library. And so I just grabbed an ESP32 and hooked it up and like ran their program.
Okay. This makes a lot of sense as to why I have a natural aversion to Arduino without even knowing exactly what it is, because that is like the opposite of my approach to interacting with it. Which is, I'm not saying is a good thing. I think it in a lot of ways might be a fault, but my this is the person who punted on for our hack day, was using West and was like, I can't do this anymore, and just went straight CMake. So
Yeah.
so yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
There's a lot of things I don't like about it. Like it obfuscates the build process. So like if you just want to go and get the hex file that the Arduino IDE compiled, like good luck finding that. It's like deep somewhere else that it doesn't really tell you. So that's kind of annoying. And in general, I just have a distrust of IDEs in general, because there's a lot of configuration usually that's happening like under the cover with IDEs that you don't know about, and that can be like a got you in the end. But with more complex things, like, I mean, I was like SPI camera, I'm like, I bet there's a ton of like aperture and speed and resolution and all those kinds of settings that you need to feed the thing before it ever decides to cough up a buffer with an image in it, which it's actually pretty easy to use. But I just like to know, yeah, this thing goes vroom when you add power to it. So
right. What do you think? So this is once again going back to SuperCon, but a thing that I think I probably heard about but didn't internalize, plus also probably didn't have time to do anyway, but something I came away really wanting to start planning on for next year, if hopefully I get to attend SuperCon again, is the add-ons, right? Like everybody brings these things. Yeah, people have been prepping for this event, right? And I just rolled in there. I was like, oh, let's see what happens. I mean, we did talk about hacking a little bit, and we had our Picos that we had been testing wiring up over I2C and whatnot. But yeah, I was like, oh, I didn't come with any custom hardware. I look like a real silly person here. If you are thinking about what would be a good add-on for us to build for next year, do you have any ideas? Any early ideas?
Oh man, that's a good idea. I mean, I would think you would just want the giant logo with some backlit LEDs, right?
Yeah.
Like that makes the most sense. Like, what did you see for? Well, maybe you should explain what add-ons are, and then maybe explain some of the ones you saw that you thought were interesting.
Yeah. So this will be an explanation with questions along the way, perhaps. But so on the badge, which I think you have yours handy. I don't have mine handy. But there was an I2C I2C pins up there at the top right, that you could plug into. I don't know if is that a thing to have on every badge, like every year, or was that just special for this year? I think you're muted.
I think Brian Benchoff gave birth to the add-ons, and I believe he coined the term "shitty add-on," which has since been dropped by most people to just add-on, and actually like formalized a pinout. And this was mostly around like the badge life growing up around DEF CON, and then conferences that were doing badges then started putting this header on because it's just a really interesting way for people to include their own like custom hardware on the official conference badge.
Gotcha. And like the 4 pins, right, are power, ground, and then clock and data for I squared C, right?
They are. I'm not sure I see very many people doing the I squared C though, which is interesting. Like
Yeah. Well, I
you and I were,
we did the I squared C,
yeah,
you know.
we did the I squared
Well,
C.
you
Yeah.
actually had that. You had you put the header on yours, so but essentially the same thing. You had to get the soldering itch.
Yeah, but I say that look at the big brain on Dan is like I'm breaking out pins and soldering them to my nice pristine badge, and Dan's like, oh, they're broken out right here, and I'm like, ah, what was I
Well,
thinking?
that was like a classic example of one of those things where it's like the naive person, is like, I, I'm not big brain enough over here to even to even know if this is correct or not, but I'm seeing the data and clock pins here. I feel like we could just use those, but I feel like I'm probably wrong. I feel like the other case leading up to it, the question I had for you and Chris was basically Mike built this library that we use internally as part of the reference designs that uses it talks to the module that we added to the badge over I squared C. So and it uses the 2040. Yeah, it's actually a Pico. And so we had code that was acting as an I squared C peripheral there, which was kind of like the basis for a lot of the hacking that we did. And but the I squared C was implemented using the PIO, the programmable input output, which is one of the things of the RP 2040 that's like extremely cool. And so, but when I was working with it ahead of time, I was like, there's also an I squared C controller on the Pico. So like, why are we using the programmable one when there's, a hard one, if you will? So that was another
Right.
one where I was wondering if it was an intelligent question or I was missing the basics. But that's I don't know. I've said it so many times that like that's the joy of working at Goliath is like I can ask those questions and get answers, and sometimes my question is helpful, and then vice versa, right?
Right.
Questions that are more software based, we can a lot of times, Mike. I think when you were working with GitHub Actions recently, there was like a bunch of things when I was like, huh, like I haven't been doing it that way, but that is a very logical like outlook, and maybe we should do that. So yeah, so you have an add-on here, right? So that one
Yeah, so
is using I squared C, right?
I don't think so. I think it's just using power, and it's got a microcontroller on the back of it.
Oh, okay.
So,
Wait, how did you get your name on there? Did you flash
Tom
it?
preloaded it on
Oh,
for
okay.
me. So Tom already made this. I don't know. I think I got to like get it closer to this camera in order to get
Oh,
it
to get the
in
focus.
focus. Yeah, it's like Chris Gamble
Oh, there you go.
recommended this. It's kind of like in focus. Yeah, so I got my name on there, and then like it's got a little button on the side over here on the side, and then there are 3 scrolling lights. Oh, it looks like my battery wasn't. Yeah, my battery's not strong enough for one of the lights, I think. Because but he put a ton of stuff on here. Um, there's shall we play a game? This is the cryptography sequence from Sneakers, if you saw that movie.
Mhm.
And then I don't know if I think OLEDs are hard to focus on in general anyway. Flying toaster. And then he has the first chapter of Neuromancer on here if you want to read the whole thing. But yeah, so like the actual spec for the add-on is a 6-pin header. So most of them have a 6-pin header, but there's a minimal standard that's a 2-pin header. And then this one just has like a OLED I squared C screen on it. And then I forget what controller this is. But yeah, tiny little controller on there. So
Yeah. Yeah, I would love to have some that we could like hand out and stuff that folks could use, and of course put on the wall, which I think we have here. I'll pull up a picture of the wall. I guess that's kind of I think there might be one in this same post here, but yeah, that was definitely a takeaway for me. I was like, we've got to get something set up for next year. Let's see.
Yeah, and it really is just planning. I mean, these days to get a little circuit board spun up is like incredibly inexpensive, and so it really is just like time and effort. It would be fun to use that CH32V003,
Yeah.
that 10 cent. I think it's a RISC chip, right?
Yep.
Uh,
I
I
actually
have a couple of those sitting back here. Like I got them from China a month ago and never did anything with them. So
yeah, I actually met the well, I don't know what someone they had a booth at Risk 5 Summit. It's
oh, cool.
WCH or something. The all I know is like the main guy, his handle on social is Patrick Risk 5, I think. And yeah, so I was playing with that anyway. But yeah, that would be really fun to use those, and obviously quite inexpensive. So
Yeah, it's like I have those, so I'm looking for a project to use
yeah,
them, and I'm like, I should learn how to use those. They look cool on YouTube.
yeah, and CN Lore, that's his GitHub handle or all the handles, I think. That Chris had him on the Amp Hour, right?
Yeah.
Has like built the firmware for it. That's really good. So lots of
he's
lots
got
of
a
blessings to do.
USB 1.1 software stack for that.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, he is quite impressive. His YouTube
Yeah.
channel is really great too.
Yeah, absolutely.
I was actually blown away with how many people were. I mean, maybe I should have expected this, but like there was a very high concentration of people with like very quality YouTube channels at SuperCon. I was like, oh, I didn't know, that I would be in the minority here of like people who don't have like a vibrant following and like high quality YouTube videos.
You were not in the minority. There were a few people who do a lot of YouTube stuff. But the cool
There are
thing
a few
is
people who didn't do YouTube stuff. Yeah.
yeah, but the cool thing is like it didn't feel like it was these like little cliques following their deity
Oh,
around.
right,
Like
yeah.
it very much is like everyone just talks to each other. So
Yeah.
that's pretty cool.
Yeah, that was the experience on Friday when you introduced me to Scotty from Strange Parts, and I was just talking to him, and I was like, "This person is so." That was the first person who I've like really. I mean, he probably has one of the biggest YouTube.
Oh
Like,
yeah.
so,
Yeah.
he. I think probably out of everyone, he probably has the biggest YouTube channel. But we were talking to him for like 5 or 10 minutes, and I was like, I swear I've seen this person before, and it's because I've watched like hours of him,
You need
And
a $1,500 Zeiss lens to actually see him the way he's meant to be seen.
yeah,
Yeah, when you see him in person, he's not as high fidelity.
yeah. He has kind of like a distinct voice though, and so I was thinking
Yeah.
because I've watched all of his tours through the PCB manufacturing plants, and I was like, I feel like I've heard this like before. Like I've heard this exact same like explanation or something before. But yeah, it was great to talk to him, and he had some cool stuff. And yeah, there's a
Which
number
we're
of
under
people.
a friend DA to not
Yeah,
discuss
right.
the
That's
things he was
why I
showing
said
us.
stuff.
But
Hopefully
I'll
soon
give
on
you a
the YouTube
hint. It
channel.
has something to do with the cell phone.
Right. That is, if you gave me that hint, I would not expect what it actually
Yeah.
is. But
Actually, it may have come out by now. I don't know. I've been keeping up on my. He said
yeah,
it was coming. We were
yeah,
getting
because I think
the
he said it
preview
was
of
like delayed. It was supposed to already be out at that point, but
then there was like a second thing where he's like handing it to people. He's like, please don't drop this because that I haven't filmed with it yet. So
yeah, I was like, I would not hand it to people if I were you. But yeah, no, that was super cool. Obviously meeting Sprite TM was a highlight. I've definitely followed his stuff. Trying to think
go
of
see his
anyone
talk
else.
as usual. Like he's very good. I watch people like that and I'm like, he just makes it look simple. I know he put in like a ton of work. Like
Yeah.
his slides are immaculate. He's got all kinds of that stuff. Like on the presentation, obviously the hack was a ton of work too. But like his presentations are always as well crafted as his hardware projects, I think.
Yeah. And his badge hack was of course great. He ran
Mhm.
Doom on the badge, which was
Yeah.
everyone went wild for that one. So
Yeah, as you do.
yeah, as you must, as is canon. So
Yeah. So interestingly, so I'd seen Cory Doctorow's talk before because he gave the keynote talk, but it's the same talk that he's been giving like on the circuit this year. It's a very important talk about how to get out of this social media mess and internet mess that we're in. But the really interesting thing that I took away from that is he was using paper notes. There was no slide deck on screen. And at first I thought, oh, that's, it's very hipster or whatever to use that. But then I realized like it's actually a really good tool because there is no like getting lost in the slides. Like your choices are to go with him on the journey and pay attention to what he's saying or to nod off and walk away. And like that's one of those like inflection points in our techno journey where you're like, oh, he's made a conscious decision here as part of his presentation to do this thing in a way to like get a tighter connection with the people that he's trying to reach out to.
Yeah. I think, even I was so when he started talking, I was admittedly doing some hacking on my laptop. And I think the fact that there were no slides actually got me not even to just not get lost in the slides, but actually just made me pay attention because I was like, oh, I can't like half pay attention to this. I had to actually like I closed my laptop and I was like, oh, I have to actually fully engage with this. Darn it. We shouldn't have to do that in this world, which is kind of his point. But yeah, that was definitely a good talk. Any other
shenanigans?
Yeah, yeah. Any other well, actually, the other thing I was gonna mention about that is, I found myself being, like, a little bummed out because I haven't invested much in Mastodon. I, like, got an account right when everyone started leaving Twitter, but, I I feel like, a lot of these people I would have encountered on Twitter in the past, um, or maybe they weren't there, but, like, there are so many cool people, obviously, like, bigger names I had heard of before, but I just hadn't. Most of them are on Mastodon. I felt like that was definitely the prevalent social network. Maybe actually some I did follow on Blue Sky,
Yeah.
but kind of like building off the social media uh, conundrums we have today. I was like, I don't know. I just found myself kind of like struck by being a little bummed out that like these are people I'd probably connect with and learn a lot from and like share things with. Uh, and I just hadn't really come across a lot of them. So
That's why we're very excited to announce the Golioth social platform.
social.goliath.io.
Yeah. No, it is still very fractured, and I feel bad about that. Honestly, it wasn't like 2021 happened, 2022 happened, and then it ruined tech social media because I think
Mhm.
tech social media had gotten like diluted at that point. Like
Yeah.
there was some high point before the downfall of Twitter. But I don't think anybody has really coalesced around the same place. But Mastodon's definitely leading the race on that. And the thing I find that has worked really well for me is when it's bad, just close Mastodon and don't come back for a couple days. Like not bad. When there isn't interesting stuff, stop scrolling and then
Yeah.
close Mastodon for a couple days and come back. That's worked really well for me. And the other one is when you see something interesting, obviously thank that person to follow them, but then look at who they follow and go through and see
Mhm.
if there's more people that you can follow on there, because I think there isn't a like out of network recommendation engine for Mastodon. So you're
Right.
either like following people or you're seeing the stuff that people you follow boost or you're not seeing it.
Yeah. Well, I think that's one of the things that well, to the Mastodon point, something when you mentioned the like stop scrolling thing, I'm doing a little bit of self reflection because one of the things I don't like about Mastodon is I can't see the replies, and I can't a lot of
Mm.
times I can't see the full like favorite slash like repost accounts or accounts, and I'm wondering if maybe that's a feature, not a bug. But, the
Yeah, there's
replies,
settings
though, can be really
too.
useful.
There's settings to show the replies in your main feed, at least on
Well,
Tusk, which is what I
yeah,
use.
if you follow the person, it like because your server has to, like, fetch all of them, right? So, like, if they're on a different server from you and you don't follow them, so you're looking at, like, a repost, or if you're looking at, I think just someone you follow, some of their replies, if their replies aren't people you follow or aren't on your server, I think sometimes they're missing too. Um, so but the other thing I was gonna mention is I really like the idea of the Blue Sky feeds where like have you seen that like I follow there's a open source hardware one, there's an
Yeah.
electronics one. Like I don't know if they're really being fully leveraged right now, but I really like the idea of basically like a curated, being able to add your
Yeah.
custom feeds and someone curating them, especially like someone that you trust, like for example, you could have like a like Goliath curated feed or something,
Yeah.
or maybe one that would be interesting is like, like Memfault's Interrupt blog. Like they
Mhm.
always have great posts like coming out of that and like sharing they've shared my posts and things like that. Like, I don't know, a custom feed like that's not necessarily following a single individual or organization, but like,
Yeah.
keywords or
I
something is interesting.
I wanna say it was like Arturo182 on
Mhm.
Blue Sky who was running that hardware list and, like, went out and was, like, shouting from the rooftops, "Hey, people, if you're
Yeah.
doing hardware stuff, tell me, I'll put you on this list." And, like, it's hard to break through because I don't really check social media very often, and I saw it, so he must really be getting out there and doing that, and I think
Yeah.
it takes motivated community organizers like that to make places special, so thank you.
Yeah.
I
No, for sure.
appreciate your work.
That's one of my favorite. Another one that I found is, do you follow PCB photos? Oh, it looks like it might
No.
be dead now. No, it's still gone. Here's one
Oh.
from one day ago. It's literally, I think Arturo might run it too, which by the way,
Oh, really?
Arturo just showed this uh JLC PCB is apparently doing full color PCBs now. This is a faulty exercise of trying to put this on the camera, but isn't
Ooh, look
that
at
just
that.
beautiful?
Yeah. That's great.
Yeah. So anyway,
Huh.
maybe they'll continue to catch on. You know what I should do is I should be more uh I should be more of an advocate for those things, as you're saying there. Arturo has done a great job running those and advocating for them, and I'm obviously endorse that behavior, so I should
Yeah,
do some more boosting. I guess that's what I'm doing here.
that's right.
Yeah,
Boosting it up.
cool. I am actually gonna have to wrap it up here in a minute. I'm going to get a vaccine, so
Oh, good
I
for you.
survived. I wanted to get it before, so I wanted to get it before the trip. That would have been a smart thing to do. But I had a race right before the trip, and so I didn't
Oh,
want to get it
right.
right before
Yeah.
that. And then I just had stuff leading up to the trip, and I mean, I should have gotten it. It was a short enough time that I was worried that it might impact my travel, and so, but it seems like I survived unscathed so far.
Yeah,
So
I made sure to get it right before. The thing is, I scheduled it CVS because they're like, "We have it," and then, like, 2 days before the scheduled thing, they texted me like, "Oh, we don't have it, just kidding." But I
oh
was able to get
no.
it in Walgreens. It was like 2 weeks and a day before the trip, so I'm like, "Yeah."
Okay, cool.
But then when I didn't have this cough that I've had at the conference, well, not really anyway, but it's been bad, and so I was like, "Oh, no." I don't feel horrible or anything, but I took a test, I don't have COVID, so
Awesome.
2 for 2. We
Yeah,
made it out. Did you wear a mask on the plane?
I didn't. No, I was afraid.
I
I was
wore a
not
mask
afraid.
on the
I was
plane
afraid
because
to not
it's
wear
yeah.
one. Yeah.
Yeah, I wore a mask on the plane just because, like, it's you're just sitting there and, like, what am
Yeah.
I'm not running around or talking to people. I might as well wear a mask on the plane. But I didn't wear it at the conference, and for the most part, there was, like, open air and room at the conference,
Mhm.
and I felt okay. That's kind of how I felt at most of our conferences lately, but you just never know, so it's good to also
Yeah.
be vaccinated.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the mask on a plane is a good idea. I think last trip that I took when I went to Chicago in the summer was the first time I didn't wear a mask since COVID. Just because, like, honestly, now I feel like I mean, it doesn't even have to be COVID related, right? Like, there's just
Yeah.
like a
That's
lot
the
of
thing is, like,
drivers.
I was always getting sick on planes. I guess I was the one that was sick on the plane this time, uh, but I haven't generally gotten, like, a cold after
Mm.
conferences. So that's one nice thing that I attribute to masking on the plane.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, cool. Well, thanks for hanging out. I hope we can keep this going. I think this is our second Friday afternoon live stream, and we can get all sorts of folks on here. But yeah, I think it's a lot of fun. Hopefully, gives folks an inside look at Goliath too.
I had a fun time hanging out with you at the conference, man. It's great to see you in person and wonderful live stream today. So thanks for everything.
Awesome. Have a good weekend, Mike.
All right. Bye, Dan.